Hey everyone, welcome to another podcast from the team in analysis.tech. This is another lowdown for you. I'm pleased to be back in the United States after spending about 6 months down in South Africa, sunny South Africa, I would say as well, um, and adjusting a little to the weather here. John, how are you?
Very well. Good to be with you again, Dave, on the lowdown from analysis.tech. Let's kick off. So today we are welcoming Roland Boulos, who is VP of Solution Consulting and Go-to-Market for a firm we recently met, and we met Roland as well. The firm is called UnifyApps, and this is UnifyApps. We think can help us all understand kind of where platforms are going in the era of AI, because the company is devoted to has created a platform for AI apps, and it's different. And so, Roland, we're really happy to have you on to help us understand what UnifyApps has done and what we can learn from the experience. So welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, John, Dave. Thank you for having me.
Oh, no problem at all. Always good to have a new guest on. So, Roland, we like to kind of start this with a bit of a background on you, sort of how you got to where you are today, both from sort of a company as well as a personal perspective. And then our listeners often like to be able to have a little anecdote of maybe something that most people don't know about you. So maybe you can just share that as well if you're open to that.
Yeah, would be happy to. So, maybe I'll start very briefly about myself, and that really ties up to UnifyApps because there's a lot of history. So, like many of us, I started as a Java developer building web applications and middlewares at the time, right? Long years ago. I'm not gonna put a number, so you don't know my real age. But I was fortunate enough throughout my career to really always being working with every major technology shift that happens. Right from first every organization started they want to move their services online. Right. I remember my first project was building an online banking solution for a bank. Right. We went live with the first service was paying your mobile bill on the online banking, and we brought cake, and it was a major milestone, right? And now this is a given, right? So then we went to mobile. I was part of that. I was exposed to low code app development at the time when it was picking up. Spent some time working in customer experience technology when also that was kind of being the focus of organizations. And really now very lucky in the last 3 years to be part of everything going on with generative AI, right? Specifically, agentic AI is where I'm working for the last 3 years, and this is where really UnifyApps comes into the picture. But maybe before I go to UnifyApps, so something that you don't know about me or not a lot of people. So I was a very good basketball player in my early years. I was considering not going to college, but continuing as a basketball player. And I had an injury. I don't know if it's luckily or not, because I don't know how good I am. You can't ask me. But I kind of left that and, decided to go to college and do computer science. And here we are. So that was a shift in my life, I would say. But happy it turned out the way it is. So very lucky. Um, and I think on UnifyApps, as you mentioned, John, right? So it is a platform company. We are basically aiming to help organizations and enterprises scale AI, right? And scale AI basically because we see the future is going to be AI native companies or AI first companies. And it cannot be done without a foundational platform, right? So we built this platform to help with solving the three key challenges we see when we're saying, I'm going to have hundreds of AI agents as an organization. These three challenges really are focused around the data, right? And it's all forms of data. And maybe during this session, we'll talk about more what does that mean. But really organizing my data so that my AI agents see the full picture. unifying my actionability so that these agents that can actually do work, execute tasks and actions. So connecting to different systems and talking to them. And then unifying my governance context, because I want to define my policies and guardrails in one place and have all my agents inherited, right? So really building that foundation. And then at the heart of this is where you are able to build AI agents and apps and kind of the next generation of AI solutions. But without these three contexts, it's really going to be very difficult and very difficult to scale, right? And that's really what we built, is that platform to have all of these capabilities unified, as the name suggests, in one place, right?
That's awesome. It kind of leads into the next question, which is, so you've, I love how you've laid out in very simple terms these three domains plus agent building. The team at UnifyApps has a very strong heritage with Sprinkler, which is a very widely used platform for experience, right? And yep. I wonder what, as the team looked at the challenges of AI, what are the differences? A lot of people know Sprinkler. What's really different about the UnifyApps platform? It sounds like there are certain, like, orchestration and integration sounds like it's at the center. What's really different? What's important for people to understand about the differences?
Yeah, I think a lot of us, a lot of the team, the co-founders were the team that built Sprinkler, right, over the last, and scaled Sprinkler over the last decade. And I think, and this is where, part of my CX journey, I met the team and worked with them along there. I think what everyone saw when, Gen AI picked up, LLMs came out, ChatGPT started being adopted by consumers, everyone saw the opportunity, right? Everyone saw the opportunity, and then the opportunity is so big and the need is going to be so big in enterprises that we all decided to go build the company and a platform just for that, right? Because it needs really a foundational platform that at the center focuses on integrations, that unified architecture, the data ontology, all of these elements we spoke about, so that I can really start to build and scale AI, right? Doing it on something that exists and that's already very established is going to be much more difficult, right? It's not going to give us the agility needed because this is moving so fast, right? I think in a nice analogy we try to always use, right? If we go back to the 1700s, right, the Industrial Revolution mechanical era, right, it all started with the steam engine, right? Steam engine was created. It drove 300 years of fuel engines, electrical engines, ships, vehicles, planes, right? Machinery, everything started from there. With digital, the same thing. It really started the digital era when computing became accessible to everyone, personal computers, internet, and then drove 40, 50 years of transformation. We were in the last 2 years in really that point, right? LLMs are the steam engine, right? Large language models, the steam engine, they're going to be much better models, much more efficient, that more powerful. But then no one remembers who created the steam engine. Everyone remembers what came after that. So I think in the next few years, it's not going to take 300 years. Obviously, it's going to be much faster. I don't know how many years, because if I knew, I wouldn't be here. But it's going to be much faster. And it is really going to be very transformative. And that really drove us to leave what we were doing, which was very successful, and start a whole new company around it, really.
So, Roland, you mentioned this really briefly in the last minute or two. Can you drill a bit more into this unified apps architecture? What makes you guys different? And for your customers, your enterprise customers that are kind of adopting, what sort of changes are they having to make to support an architecture like this?
Yeah. So I think what we built, we're calling it the AI operating system architecture for the enterprise, right? Basically, if you look at the operating system on your device or computer, it's basically sitting on top of your hardware, orchestrating the different hardware components and allowing you to run smoothly and build applications and software on top, right? So within an enterprise, UnifyApps is a horizontal platform that's going to sit on top of your infrastructure and hardware and cloud of choice, right? The new entry there is the large language models. This is the new other element of infrastructure. And you're going to need more than one for sure. If you really want to scale AI, you're going to need many and to orchestrate them. So we're sitting on top of this. Again, whichever model, whichever infra, so very flexible there, but really allowing you first connect your different systems, storage solutions, get the data moving, organize the data, clean it, build your ontology or knowledge graph, so really make it ready for AI, and then start to build your agents, apps, workflow in a very configuration-based visual builder type of experience that allows you to do it fast without having to learn all of these coding frameworks that are coming up or different skill set that are really needed for that. So really, this is why we're calling it the operating system. It's sitting at the heart. It's gonna plug into whatever infra you have, the models of your choice or the models that are needed for your business, can also plug into your data lakehouse of choice that you probably already have, your different systems, CRM, ERP, etc., and just orchestrating that, helping you build these AI solutions to either complement what exists or just build from scratch, really complete solutions from the ground up. That's really what is, I think, what has been our approach from day one when building this platform, and continues to evolve towards really that as the underlying foundational technology also changes, right, and the models evolve, etc.
That's by the way, James Watt invented the steam engine, but I got help with the Google machine to get that, to retrieve that. Roland, one thing that I'm really curious about, and it's too bad our friend Rick Greenwald, our partner Rick Greenwald, isn't here. The architecture you're describing, you mentioned the word ontology. So this is a word that most people don't understand, but the data architecture that you're describing is not transactional databases or document stores, is it? It's more of like an index. I mean, that's maybe not a great analogy, but you create a graph that describes the relationships, the meaning, the context, etc. of the data, correct? And does UnifyApps provide tooling? Because that ain't easy.
Yeah, absolutely, John. And it is very, very similar. So I think there is two aspects of it. First, I need to get that data in, right? The metadata aspect of it is where I need to enrich it, right? So build this index so that when I give it to these AI agents, they understand it, right? I think what organizations are not also aware of, because as they start experimenting with AI, etc., right? If I'm building an AI agent for my CRM, right, for sales, this AI agent needs to see my org chart, needs to understand my employees and their roles. It's not just I give it the data, even if I index it off the CRM, it needs to know if the CRO is asking me a question about revenue, I can give him the revenue of all the company. If it's a divisional leader asking me a question about revenue, I give him the data of his, right? And I personalize it for him, etc. So that's why we say it is a foundational thing for scaling AI, because you cannot, every time I want to build an agent, okay, what is the data I need? Let me get it, let me index it, and then start, oh, it's not working in production, then I need to get some. So it's doable, it's just painful and slow, right? And doesn't scale. So that's why we say this is foundational, is to get the data, build these graphs, organize it, enrich it, and make it really ready for AI. Then I start the build. The building the agent becomes the easier and faster and more agile, right?
Right.
That's exactly.
Thank you for that. All the library science people out there are applauding your comments. Hey, folks, thanks for joining. You are watching or listening usually to the Lowdown from Analysis.tech, formerly known as the Lowdown on Low Code. As you can tell, we our research base has really extended from low code into AI and topics around AI. If you like what you're hearing, if this is helpful, hit the like button, hit the share button, tell your friends, your colleagues, your neighbors. We're here just about every week with this kind of content, trying to, all of us all trying to understand how to benefit from this AI era we've entered and how to avoid the downsides of it. So thanks for listening. Let's turn now to a little bit more drill down, Roland, on applications. AI applications, the kinds of apps that people build on UnifyApps. And I want to just highlight for the listeners that you've got customers, and UnifyApps is doing real work for actually large organizations. So one of the things that strikes us when we look at how people are using AI is there's a lot of bolt-ons. You know, an agent to summarize a call and stick it in a Salesforce, account record or something like that. That those are interesting, but they're not usually valuable. I mean, well, I guess to a sales rep that's valuable, but there's, as you pointed out, we're at the beginning of a real transformation. Tell us about some of the really cool new kinds of things you've seen people do using your product and using AI.
Yeah, absolutely, John. I think it is very natural, right? When Gen AI came up and everyone wanted to do something with it, it's very natural that we just do these AI assistants, Copilot, that can help us summarize, generate some content, help me write my email. In a more enterprise business process side of things, we took an existing process and we said, okay, this task I'm going to offload to the LLM, right? Let it do a task part of the process, right? Which, in some cases, yes, it is useful, but that's really not really tapping into the power of this tech. What is really coming, right? What is coming and what are we doing with some of these, early customers that are going all in, like really transformative, is you're going to have the opportunity to really completely reimagine your business process, right? Your core business process is you now can do things that you couldn't do before because humanly it wasn't possible, but also you can completely reverse it, right? So a lot of examples is taking processes that are heavy on documents and documentation, where, if I'm, let's say, a lot of organization, I want to do a certain application, I would fill forms, upload my documents, try once and twice, get some errors, then submit, right? So now it's an AI agent. You give it the documents and you're done. It might have to ask you one or two questions, but it's going to go through these documents, whichever format there are, scanned by your phone or digital, get all the information it needs, maybe ask you one or two questions, and you're done, right? So it's really the flipping the whole process. And again, a simple example, but it's really opening up these things. It's a lot of now work of agents doing the work and humans are just supervising, right? So again, back to that mechanical era analogy. In the mechanical era, we humans became operators, right? We started operating these machines, right? What we used to do physically, now it's being done. In digital era, we started becoming admins. We built all these softwares and apps. We became the administrators of them. In the intelligence era, we're going to become governors, right? We're going to have AI agents and teams of agents doing work for us, right? Our job is going to become, let me supervise, let me review, let me approve, let me give some feedback to these agents and fine tune. But that's really the reality. Is not, yes, probably it's not going to happen tomorrow, but that's really where everything is. Again, we're still in the steam engine kind of early days, but that's really the power that's going to happen. We are doing a lot of these examples with customers. I wouldn't say, from now 100% autonomous and autonomy, right? Some use cases, yes, but it's really getting to 90%, 95% of all the work is being done by teams of agents, or people call them swarms of agents. And then just, our jobs changing to become these governors of them. So it is gonna go much more. And again, we're just starting, so we're already working with customers around 14 different industries, and in every industry there is a lot of opportunity for these transformations.
That's great, Dave.
So, Roland, let's just talk about delivery and the way this happens within customers. And I'm particularly interested in sort of the role of third parties like integrators, channel partners, et cetera, et cetera. Historically, with platforms like these, there's been a big need for those kind of organizations to not just add some kind of domain knowledge, but also to be able to be deeply technical in understanding what it actually takes to deploy this, to roll this out, et cetera, et cetera. How do you see that changing or evolving? And sort of what's the unified apps value proposition for someone like an integrator, who is trying to create new streams of revenue for their own business as well?
That's a great topic, Dave. I think solution delivery partners or system integrators are also being disrupted the same way as everyone is, right? A big part of what they're doing, yes, it's becoming AI tools are doing it, being automated, right? So it is a bit of challenge for them, but there is also massive opportunities, same as everyone else, right? We just spoke about reimagining business processes. If I go now to 90% of organizations and I tell them, pick your core process and your important for your business and let's reimagine it, they're gonna, how do I do that, right?
Yeah.
That's really exactly the role that these solution partners can play, right? They have domain knowledge, they have been doing digital transformation for a long time. They have the people, they can get skills and define frameworks to do that, and really be at the center of driving this next transformation for organizations, right? So that's on one side. The other side, from like if we look at the whole software delivery lifecycle, right? The early stages of it, the discovery, the design of the solution, the prototyping is almost shrunk, right? It's all AI tools now that can do that very quickly, right? Which basically means organizations now are looking to build what is called the AI factory or AI center of excellence. I want to build a team, either mine or most commonly is from a solution partner that can produce continuous delivery of AI solutions for me. When we say AI solutions, the combination of agents and apps, right, and all of that, right? Because I'm now much more efficient, more agile, I can really start to build the practice as a solution delivery partner around, hey, I can help you, structure your AI center of excellence and be part of it if you want. That can really drive that next, that delivery of the next generation of solutions, right? So it's really going to be changing the way they approach things, like same like everyone, right? But also a lot of opportunity. And for us as UnifyApps, we have a lot of partners we work with. We are a technology provider, right? We prefer to put our effort and energy in continuing to evolve this platform while having a lot of people build solutions on top of it, right? So we definitely support them. We are doing some projects ourselves naturally as well, which we gained a lot of knowledge throughout. So we're happy to pass it also to a lot of these partners. But it's definitely, there is some disruption and challenges, but also massive opportunity for them for sure.
Got it. Sure.
What you're describing, Roland, is very different, leads to very different structures, I think, than the current industry, than we see in the current industry. Well, I wonder what you think what you see as changes to the ways that that companies acquire software, that vendors create software, and what their business models are. I mean, there's this VC dream of a vendor selling 1 billion agents and charging for each one, but I don't know about that. Yesterday we talked with a guy who's doing a startup, and he's pulling his hair out because he's like, how do I defend what I build? Somebody using Claude Code can reinvent it in a day or a week. How do you see the business models changing? to come in this era of AI.
Yeah, and this is especially now that this is day-to-day topic we're having with our customers who have already started, right? The conversation now is, okay, I've done 15 agents and apps, right? What is the ROI? What is the outcomes, right? My CFO now is coming and telling me, okay, I gave you this budget to do AI, what are we achieving, right? Because there is also this new bill that is now coming, is the token consumption, right? These LLM tokens, and which can go very exponentially if we don't know what we're doing, or we start to build things not the right way, right? So I think everything is gonna go back to ROI, outcome, everything I'm planning to do. If I'm planning to build an agent, if it doesn't increase revenue for me, or decrease cost, or mitigate risk for me, I shouldn't be doing it, right? Because I'm gonna pay LLM and I'm gonna pay the value, and it's not gonna. We try to think of it the same way as you would hire and onboard employees, right? You would hire an AI agent, onboard them, right? They start to do the work, and then you track their performance. If they're not doing the work, valuable work, you're going to fire them or retire them. If they are, you're going to promote them and continue to invest more in them, and right? So it's exactly the same thing if we simplify it. Every AI solution I want to build, I need to really focus on the business outcomes, right? And be able to really build it fast. We spoke about that agility, be able to really spin it quickly, experiment quickly, and evolve. That's going to be super important for both vendors and customers. There will be a lot of AI tools and consolidation. Some of them will disappear because, again, they're not going to drive that value or not able to evolve. That's why we believed from day one we could have done AI tools and some ready-made agents and just put them out there. We probably would have tripled our revenue already, right? But we're going the long play, right? We see their organizations will need a platform like ours, right? Whether now or next year, because having agents and tools from different places is not going to scale and sustain, both from a cost and value point of view, but also from all the operational complexities needed behind it. So that's really how we approached it. Exactly, because it is going to impact a lot the business models for vendors and for the organizations themselves.
Great. Dave? Dave, you're muted.
My bad. So Roland, you talked a little bit about this idea of moving from apps to having, a much more rigid infrastructure or set of infrastructure services as part of this move to deliver this sort of next generation of reimagined apps. And I love this term, reimagined. Francis Carden, one of our colleagues, it's like his favorite word to use. But I think it's it's interesting, both in the context that you brought up, customers who are turning around and saying, well, what does it actually take to reimagine something? And sometimes they understand, and other times they need a whole bunch of help and guidance. But underneath all of this, I think, you made this point about the fact that there are now so many tools out there to do things. Some of these tools are good, some of these tools are not. Many of them create siloed things that are actually going to create chaos over time, and people don't necessarily realize this yet. And so when you think about this idea of a next generation infrastructure, what do you mean by that?
Yeah, I think it's really summing up all what we discussed, right? There is going to be more and more LLMs. We're going to need them as part of our core infrastructure, right? And there is going to be need to orchestrate them. But I think at the fundamental challenge that organizations are facing and are going to face more is the usual approach of how we used to build software and develop apps is not going to work anymore, right? I identify the app or the agent. I go understand the requirement. I understand the data, build the data model, the UI, the logic, etc. Right? It is not going to work in this AI era, right? The approach we're saying is build this infrastructure, put that foundation platform in place, right? So that you go from code first or build first to assembly first, right? I have my data, my context, right? The 3 contexts we spoke about. I know I'm building against the governance I have specified, the guardrails, the policies, everything is observed and monitored, right? I have the ability to invoke actions through different protocols, MCP and others that are keep coming up, and they will keep evolving, right? So I am future-proof. Anything that comes new, I'm able to work with it, right? I have this foundation, this infra. Average life cycle of a LLM is less than a year. So if an LLM goes away, new version comes, I don't disrupt my core foundational platform, right? And they really start to move into this, we call it assembly first delivery of these next generation apps. It's going to become more assembling these apps, these agents, the different elements of them, making sure they're having, they can see the data and the knowledge that I need, they can talking to the different systems, etc. And then be able to really do it fast, right? Again, what we are doing is probably can be done with a lot of different tech stacks, a lot of tools I can put together, right? Some of it coding, some of it AI assisted, etc. It's just going to be slower. It's going to take me a long time. It's going to, again, require a lot of people who know what they're doing, which not all organizations have. They don't all have highly skilled engineers, right? In a topic that's very new, right? So we're saying, look, we have invested millions of dollars and years into this, building this for you so that you can focus on what is the challenge? How can I solve for it? How can I build? And I have all this toolbox, all the capabilities I need to build that and build hundreds and dozens of them, of these solutions, right? That's really, I think, what, how at least we have approached it, and what I think will be essential for the scale. Again, if my plan is to build one AI agent, I don't need a UnifyApps or a platform, or, right? If I'm planning to build, 50, 100, which definitely is going to be the reality very soon of big organizations, this is where we kind of help in a lot of that scale, helping solving that and bringing that agility and the lower overall total cost of ownership, right?
Yeah, I think just before handing back to John, one of the things we're seeing right now is that there's this enormous focus on these tools that have done a really great job in creating what I'm going to call idea to concept. Whether there be vibing tools, etc. But the idea of being able to go from idea to execution is a very different world. And especially when it's a meaningful, complex enterprise class application that we're focusing on. And I guess that's part of what you're saying here as well is, you need to not just take a look at tactical tooling and lets me create a cool agent or lets me create a concept that I can demonstrate to others. Those are interesting. They're somewhat valuable, but at the end of the day, you've got to actually make this thing work for the organization. And you've got to be able to manage it, govern it, and that's the goal, correct?
Yeah, absolutely, Dave. And I think that's really, going away from these pilots and experiments to production, because yes, I will get that first version quicker, that MVP, right? That first pilot, maybe quicker and easier. But it's never, and we know, we've been doing enterprise software for a long. It's never about the first version. It's the changes, continuous change and enhancement, especially in something new, right? That is going to be super difficult if I'm using a tool that's generating code that I need to go back and prompt it to change, right? This is one aspect. And the other aspect, yes, the governance, the security, the penetration testing that is needed for an enterprise. So I cannot trust that tool that's generating the code to also audit the code and review the code. So I still need some form of review. So it is definitely a lot of challenges. It's, again, good for certain areas, like I mentioned, the early cycle for these mock-ups, prototypes, to quickly do it fast. But the actual build and scale and change for the full life cycle is going to be very, very difficult. We kind of, married a bit the both worlds, right? You can actually on UnifyApps vibe prompt to build an app or an agent, but we're not producing code. We're producing our metadata of the platform, our JSON, right? So that, because the platform itself is runtime on the code, right? So this is where you're making sure you're inheriting all the guardrails, the governance, the security, etc. But you're still getting that agility to get started quickly, right?
Right.
That's
So
really, I
many,
think, where
so many follow-on questions, topics that we could get into, Roland. I mean, I think it'd be great to come back and talk again sometime about the roles and responsibilities and how the relationship between the business and IT changes. And maybe we'll do that. But today we really appreciate you sharing your experiences. I think this has been a really helpful session, certainly for me, and hopefully for the audience. If people want to know more, learn more about Unify Apps, unifyapps.com. Simple as that.
yeah,
All right.
simple as that.
Hey, thank you, Roland, and thanks everyone for tuning in. Again, if this is the lowdown from analysis.tech, if you enjoyed or got value out of the content, hit the like button, hit the share button, tell your friends, your colleagues, your neighbors. We're here just about every week, and thanks for joining today.
Thanks all. Thanks, Roland.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. It's been great. Very, very interesting conversation, and hopefully useful for your audience and ours. So thank you for having me. It's been great.